Greetings to you, and welcome to Magnifying Glass series. So I have a segment today titled, Is Saul Paul the Christ in Mark chapter 16, verses 16 through 18? Okay, so point. Jesus spoke on keeping the commandments and enduring until the end to be saved. Paul, on the other hand, was big on just believing and have faith. So, we're going to get started in the book of Mark, chapter 13, verse 13. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So that verse states nothing else but enduring to be saved. Okay, next we're going to move over to Matthew, chapter 10, verse 22. And ye shall be and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. Okay, so that says the same thing that Mark 13:13 says. Okay, next, Matthew 24, verse 13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So that says pretty much the same thing that the last two verses said, just made it a little bit shorter. Okay, so next, I'm going to go over to Mark chapter 16, verse 16. So pay attention how it is totally different than Mark 13:13. So this is Mark 16:16. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. Okay, notice how that Mark 16:16 said nothing about enduring until the end. Said nothing about enduring. And Mark 13:13 said nothing about being baptized to be saved. So why is Mark 13:13 and Mark 16:16 saying something totally different? So, questions. But we're going to harp on Mark 16:16 and one word in that verse, the word damned. I asked the question in the title because the word damned is only mentioned in the letters claimed to be written by Saul Paul. And I'm taking this standpoint from the KJV Bible. So we're going to get the other two scriptures that has that word damned in them. Romans chapter 14, verse 23. And he that doubteth is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith, is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith. For whatsoever is not of faith is sin. So that's talking about eating food, and if you don't have faith in what you're eating, then it's considered sin because you lack faith. But we're not going to get into that part of it. We're just focusing on that word damned, how it's mentioned only in Mark 16:16, Romans 14:23, and this next verse, which is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 12. That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So, since Christ means anointed, Saul Paul in his eyes would be an anointed one, a Christ to those who follow after his Paulinism. So, other part of my title question, linking Paul to Mark 16:18, which is only 2 verses before my original point. So we're going to get Mark 16:18 again. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. So there's 2 ways you can drink something. One, mouth entry, or by injection entry. We know this by when you go to the hospital and if you have to get an IV if you're dehydrated. And in the hospital, they give you the IV to rehydrate you. Okay? So Paul drank something deadly. It's called viper venom, snake venom, serpent venom. Whoever wrote Acts tells us. So this is Acts chapter 28, verse 3. And when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. Acts 28:5. And he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Acts 28:6. Howbeit they looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly. So this is a poisonous snake, poisonous viper by way of the venom. But after they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. So did this go to Paul's head? Did he get an ego upon himself? Okay, so here's Mark 16:18. This is clearly talking about Paul. They shall take up serpents, and they shall drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. There's only one person in the Bible that fits that description, and that's Paul. And Acts tells us this. Magnifying glass. Okay, so this part is reiterating on a point where I did in another segment. Just seeing, since there's no Luke or Mark in the disciple list in any of them, in Mark chapter 3, verse 16 through 19, there's no Luke or Mark that was a disciple of Jesus. So who wrote these gospels? Okay, so here we have the verse I'm about to bring out. We have Luke with Demas, and then you have Luke with Mark. Okay, in the book of Colossians chapter 4, verse 14. Luke, the beloved physician, and Demas greet you. Okay, so you got Luke right there, who's a beloved physician. Okay, the next time we see this name is in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11. Only Luke is with me. Take Mark and bring him with thee, for he is profitable to me for the ministry. Okay, these 2 names with that spelling as first names, no other verses, not in the Gospel of Luke or the Gospel of Mark. Okay, so here we have Mark as a last name in Acts chapter 12, verse 12. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark. So his name was John Mark. Then you have another account of that in Acts 12, verse 25. I think in a prior class, I mistakenly said verse 15, but it's Acts 12, verse 25. And Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem when they had fulfilled their ministry and took with them John, whose surname was Mark. Okay, So the next mention, same guy, John, in Acts chapter 15, verse 37. And Barnabas determined to take with them John, whose surname was Mark. Okay, and the next mention of that John Mark is in Acts 15:39. And the contention was so sharp between them that they departed asunder one from the other. And so Barnabas took Mark and sailed unto Cyprus. Okay, so gonna recap on 2 Timothy 4:11, but just the part that's mentioning Mark. So take Mark and bring him with thee, for he is profitable to me for the ministry. Okay, so point. So that must be the John Mark from Acts 15:37, because Barnabas was determined to take him. You rarely hear of someone being determined to take someone with them that is unprofitable. Okay, so next point. And they are mentioned together in one more verse, but as shown, they only are named with related verses to Saul, Paul. And you have their names mentioned together, but spelled totally different in Philemon chapter 24. Marcus, Aristarchus, Demas, Lucas, my fellow laborers. So it is highly likely that Mark 16, verses 16 through 18, may be referring to Saul Paul, because he's the only one that got bit by a serpent and nothing happened to him. Okay, so that's the end of this reflection under the magnifying glass. Stay tuned for more reflections as I go polish off my magnifying glass and see what I see in these scriptures.